Hi, welcome to Lesson 10, Session 2. We are going to be continuing our work learning how to add decimals. Today we'll use different strategies to add decimals with tenths and hundredths. We will be working in our Ready Classroom math workbook. We'll be working on pages 193 through 198. So go ahead and take out your math workbook and turn to page 193. Okay, so here is the problem that we have for today. The problem says, we're going to read and try to solve the problem below using strategies that we already have. So it says, from his home, Tim rides the bus 3 82/100 miles. Then he walks 4/10 of a mile from the bus stop to school. How many miles does Tim travel from home to school? So first we're going to figure out what is this problem talking about. And this problem is talking about how is Tim who rides the bus and then he walks and he's going to school. So this is Tim getting to school. That's what this problem is talking about. Now we want to know, what is it that we're trying to solve? What is the problem that we need to find a solution for? So we need to find out how many miles Tim travels from home to school. So we know the important information is that he rides the bus 3 82/100 miles, and he walks 4/10 of a mile. So we need to figure out how much he does all together. So the strategy so yesterday we used the break apart strategy. Today I'm going to show you the place value strategy. I feel like this is the method that most of you will probably stick with after we show all of our different strategies. This strategy can be done one of two ways. If you have a place value chart, you can use your place value chart to do the work on the place value chart. But I recognize that not everybody is going to have a place value chart easily at their disposal. So I'm going to show you in this example how you can make the place value chart on your page. And then for the rest of the session, I will likely use the place value chart. So to make the place value chart, you're going to make a much bigger place value chart than you're used to making. Because this time, we're going to put more than just one decimal in this place value chart. So we're going to go ahead and still make our smaller rectangle here, and we look at both of our decimals and recognize that the least place value we have is 100th. And so we are going to have our ones. We always make a column for our decimal. Then we have our tenths and our hundredths. Okay, so now we're going to look at that first decimal, and we've got 3 82/100 miles. So we're going to write our 3, our decimal point. Do not put a number in there. That is where your decimal point goes. And then we have 8/10 and 2/100. Then we're going to look at our 4/10 of a mile. We have 0 ones, so we're going to put a 0 in the ones place. We're going to put our decimal, and then we have a 4 in the tenths place. So here's where it's very important. We need to make sure that when we're adding, we add up by place value. And as you can see, 4/10 has no hundredths, but we can put a 0 right here. And that 0 is it's called a placeholder 0, and it will make it so that we can add more easily. Some of you will recognize that 2 plus 0 is 2, or 2 plus nothing would still be 2. But I want to leave it this way just so that you guys can see how this works. So I like to add that placeholder 0 because I know that 4/10 is the same as 40 hundredths. So now we have our first decimal, which is 3 and 82 hundredths miles. Then we have our 4/10 of a mile. Now we're simply going to, using the place value chart, we're going to add those two decimals together. So 2 plus 0 is 2. 8 plus 4 is 12. And then 3 plus 0 is 3. Can we do that? We cannot, because we can never have two numbers in one box. So we need to regroup. Now, if we were adding the traditional way that we know how to add, we would go, okay, 8 plus 4 is 12. We would put our 2 down below and carry the 1. Well, guess what? We're going to do that again. This 1 means that we have, so this 12 means that we have 12 tenths. How many tenths does it take to make one whole? That's right, it takes 10 tenths to make a whole. So we're going to take a 10 of these tenths away and carry them. So this 1 is going to go up over here, and we're going to add 1/10 to make this. Now we're going to have this number here. Instead of being 3 ones, it's going to be 3 plus 1. So it's going to be a 4. And then now this 12 tenths, we're taking away this extra 1 here. So because we're taking away 12 minus 10 is 2. So now we've taken those 10 away and regrouped them and made another 1. And so now our total is 4 and 22 hundredths. I'm going to show you down below what that looks like outside of the place value, just so that you can see what we did there. So I have this problem. I made sure that I lined up my hundredths, my tenths, my decimal place, and my ones. So 2 plus 0 is 2. 8 plus 4 is 12. I'm going to take my 2 tenths and put it down below. And then my 1 is the regrouped group of 10 that I'm going to carry to the top of my ones place. I'm going to make sure to bring my decimal straight down, because my decimal always goes to the right of my ones place and to the left of my tenths place. Then I'm going to add 1 plus 3 is 4. So I will still get 4 and 22 hundredths miles is how far that Tim travels to school. Let's keep practicing that. Go ahead and go to page 194. So on page 194, we're going to see two different methods of how we can show adding those two decimals that we talked about. Here's the place value method, which is what I used on the last page. And then here is a number line method. So the way this number line method works is right now, this number line method is broken into each one of these is a tenth, okay? And then each of these tiny little tick marks is 2 100ths. I know that's tricky. So this is 3 and 82 hundredths, 3 and 84 hundredths, 3 and 86 hundredths, 3 and 88 hundredths, 3 and 90 hundredths, 3 and 92 hundredths. So as you can see, we're going up by 2 hundredths every time we go up. So this spot here is, so if we were we're starting at 3 and 82 hundredths because we have 3 and 82 hundredths here. Now look at this. We make 4 jumps. 1, 2, 3, 4 jumps. And each of those jumps is a jump of 1/10. So why do you think we make 4 jumps of 1/10? That's right, because he walks 4/10 of a mile from the bus to school. So here's how far it took him to get to the bus stop. Okay, we're gonna start at the bus stop. Then he's gonna walk all the way to school. Now to get to school, he needs to go 4/10 more than the bus stop. So we start at the bus stop, we start at the first decimal, and then we're going to add on 4/10 more. So each jump is 1/10. So 1/10 more than 8/10 would be 9/10. So we know that this first stop is 3 and 92 hundredths. Because if we added 1/10, we would get 3 and 92 hundredths, okay? Now, if we added 1/10 to here, our next little leap up is gonna take us up to here. So that would be 2, and then we would have 10/10. So we have to regroup, and that would take us up to 4 and 2 hundredths. Then to go up here, we're gonna add 1 more tenth. And when I write 10, I'm just putting in that placeholder 0. I really am only adding 1/10, but I wanted to put in the placeholder 0 because 1/10 is the same as 10 hundredths. So 2 plus 0 is 2, 0 plus 1 is 1, bring my decimal straight down. So this next is going to be 4 and 12 tenths. And then if I add 1 more tenth to 4 and 12 tenths, I'm going to get to my final destination, which is 4 and 22 hundredths. So that was probably a little bit longer than I thought. But so every time I add a tenth, I moved up on the number line by a tenth each time. And so I got from 3 and 82 tenths to 4 and 22 hundredths. Sorry, 3 and 82 hundredths, adding those 4 tenths. I want you to recognize that all of that together is 4 tenths, okay? 4 tenths. Adding those all together gets us up to 4 and 22 hundredths. So the number line strategy is one strategy you can use to add decimals. What we did was we started at 3 and 82 hundredths. We made 4 jumps of 1/10 to the right to show the sum of 3 and 82 hundredths plus 4 tenths. We can also use a place value chart to help us understand how to add decimals. So when we add, we recognize that we have 3 ones because 3 plus 0 is 3. So 3 in the ones place. We have 8 plus 4, which means we have 12 tenths, and then 2 plus 0 is 2 hundredths. And then they're telling you here that you can put in this placeholder 0 into the hundredths column because 4 tenths is equivalent to 40 hundredths, that those two fractions are equivalent. So remember that as long as the 0 goes at the end, you do not change the value of the number. You just change the place value, but you don't change the actual amount. So now let's go and look at the next page. Go to page 195. So on page 195, the first question says, and I kind of explained this already, but the first question says, how can you use the number line in Picture It to figure out how many miles Tim travels from home to school? So using this number line, remember that what we did was we said the first jump takes us from the first jump, we start at 3 and 82 hundredths. The first jump takes us to 3 and 92 hundredths. The second to 4 2/2, the third to 4 12/12, and then the fourth to 4 22/2. So we know Tim travels 4 22/2 miles. The next question says, look at model it. What is another way to express 12/10? So we also talked about this on the last page. If we have 12/10, remember, one whole is equal to 10/10. So we can write this as 1 1, because we have one in the one, we have one whole, and then if we take away 10 to make that whole, we have 2 left, 2/10. So we can rewrite that as one whole. Sorry, I'm just turning my pages over here. So we can rewrite that as 1 1 and 2/10, which we wrote over here as well. So what is another way to express the sum? So what that's asking is if our answer, our sum, we've decided is 4 22/2. That is our sum. So another way we could write this sum is we could break it apart and say we have 4 1s plus 2/10 plus 2/100. So that's another way that we could express the sum, the sum is 4 22/100. So what, oh, never mind, I just wrote it there. So what is the decimal? What is the sum in decimal form? It is 4 22/100. Now, you can add the decimals without a place value chart by stacking them vertically. Why do you align the 8 and in 3 82/100 with the 4 in 4/10? So when we look over here, why do we line this 8, or why does the 8 go on top of the 4? Why do we do that? Here's what I said. The 8 and the 4 are both tenths, so we put them in the same line. So even though we don't have a place value chart, our 2 is in where the hundredths go, and we have the 4/10 has 0/100, so remember we can put that 0 there. Then we have our 8 and our 4, which are both tenths, so they go in the same line. And then as you notice, the decimals line up, and so if your decimal, and when you're adding and subtracting, always lines up. It always stays in the same line. It's not the same way in dividing and multiplying, but when we add and subtract decimals, it always stays lined up. And then finally, we have our ones. So this addition problem over here is partially completed. Explain why there is a 1 above the ones place. So we talked about this. Why do we have that 1 up there? Well, we know that 8/10 plus 4/10 equals 12/10. We can't have 12 in the tenths place. Remember how I showed you that? Well, we had to erase it. Well, not erase it, but we had to white it out because we can't have 2 numbers in the tenths place. And so we can't have a 12 there. So we needed to take 10 of the 12/10 and regroup it to make it another whole. 12/10 is 1 1 plus 2/10. So we have this 2/10 here. This 1 whole is the same as 10/10. So that's why we carry that 1 up here to make us another whole. and then 3 plus 1 is 4. So explain in words how to add decimals. So to add decimals, you add the digits that have the same place value. So you make sure that you line up both of your decimals in line with the same place value. That's why I said using the place value chart is super, super, super helpful. If needed, you can regroup when a place value has 10 or more units in it. So remember, like we did here, you can't say 12 tenths here, so you leave your 2 tenths down below, and you regroup, and you take that group of 10, and you put that 110 up, that one group of 10 or that one whole up on top of the next place value over, and then continue to add. So right now, I want you to think. Look back at your try it strategies and picture it and model it. Which models or strategies do you like best for adding decimals? Explain. So do you prefer using the number line method, using the place value method? And the other way that you can look at the place value method is this is also called the place value method, because you're stacking your decimals up according to place value. So when I add decimals, the strategy I like best is you're either going to say the number line strategy or the place value strategy, and then you're going to tell me why that is the strategy you like best. Go ahead and pause the video and do that now. Okay, we're going to go ahead and go on now to page 196. On page 196, we're going to practice adding decimals. For number 7, I'm going to go ahead and use my place value chart because I feel like that is going to be super helpful. So I'm going to use my place value chart for this method, and then for the others, I will probably use the stacking method, which is place value method without the place value chart. If you find that you are having trouble lining up your decimals, I would highly suggest you use this place value chart all the time. Because what this will do is it will make sure that you only put one digit in each place value and that you're adding up your numbers in a line where they should be. So I'm going to go ahead and start. This says Yana makes trail mix with 6 25 ounces of dried fruit and 1 8/10 ounces of sunflower seeds. How many ounces of trail mix does Yana make? So first I'm going to start with my 6 25. So I know that my 6 is in my ones place. I need to put my decimal, and then I have 2/10 and 5/100. Next, I have 1 8/10 ounces of sunflower seeds. Now, here's a mistake that is often made. Everybody likes to line up their decimal, all their numbers to the right-hand side. But does this say 1 8/10? It doesn't, because see how the decimals over here, it's not lined up? We need to make sure, and that's why this place value chart is so super helpful, because we know that we have one whole to the right of the decimal. Well, we know our decimal is going to go here. So that one whole needs to go here. Then we have 8/10. The 8/10 goes there. We have no hundredths, but we do have a hundredth in this number. So we're going to go ahead and put in our placeholder 0 because it will make it easier for us to add the two numbers together. Then we can just simply add each of our place values and regroup when necessary. So 5 plus 0 is 5. So we have a total of 5/100. 2 plus 8 is 10. Can we do that? No, we can't. Whenever we get more than 9/10, we have to regroup. And we regroup with groups of 10. So if we have 10, what we're going to do is the same as if we were adding without decimals. So if we have 8 plus 2, we're going to leave 0/10 and carry the 1 up to the top of the ones place, because that tells me that I have 1 whole and 0 and 0 tenths, because 2 tenths plus 8 tenths is 10 tenths, which is equal to 1 whole. My decimal is going to come straight down, and then I'm going to add 1 plus 6 is 7, 7 plus 1 is 8. So my final sum is 8 5/100 ounces of trail mix. So you're going, and so I'm going to really quickly show you the stacking method on your paper, because we did it here using the place value chart, but I'm going to show you what it would look like if we were doing it on our paper. So we have 6 25/100, and then we're going to add, making sure we line up our place value, our 1 8 tenths, making sure that those ones, as you can see, we have our ones, our decimal point, our tenths, and our hundredths. We can even add that 0 there if we want to help us out. 5 plus 0 is 5. 8 plus 2 is 10. Carry the 1. Bring our decimal straight down. 1 plus 6 plus 1 is 8. We have 8 5/100 ounces of trail mix. Okay, so now I'm going to do number 8. Number 8 says, what is the value of the expression 2 25/100 plus 63 5/100 plus 6 tenths? First, estimate the sum. Then find the exact answer. Show your work. So I'm going to estimate by rounding each of these to the nearest whole number. So 2 25/100, I know that 25/100 is closer to 2 than it is to another whole, because if I broke 2 to 3, if I made a number line from 2 to 3, 2 25/100 would be closer to 2 than it is to 3. So I can add 2 plus 63 5/100. Well, 5/100 is much closer to 63 than it is to making it go up to 64. So I'm going to add 63. And then 6 tenths is more than halfway between 0 and 1. So I'm going to add 1 more whole. So our answer is going to be about 66. So let's see what our actual amount is. I'm going to go ahead and use the stacking method, making sure that all of my place values line up. So I'll first, and I'm going to put them in the order that they are in here. Some people like to use the largest value number first and then move down, but I'm just going to start from the top. So I have 2 25/100. Then I have a 6 in my tens. I'm not going to line it up here because it's a 10, not a 1. So my 6 is going to go over here. I have 3 ones. So my 3 ones is going to go underneath my 2 ones. My decimal is going to stay in the same place. I have 0 tenths. So I'm going to put a 0 in the tenths. And then I have 5/100. So I'm going to put a 5 in the hundredths place. And then finally, I have this third number. Don't worry, we can go ahead and add it in because we can do them all at the same time. So I have 0 ones, and then I have 6 tenths. And then I have no hundredths, but I'm going to go ahead and put the 0 there so that it's a little bit easier to add. And then if you want to, you can draw your lines to make sure that you have everything lined up. So first I'm going to add my hundredths. 5 plus 5 plus 0 is 10. I'm going to need to regroup, so I put my 0 down below, my 1 up top. This 1 represents 10 hundredths that I've regrouped and moved into the tenths place, because 10 hundredths is 1 tenth. Then I'm going to add my 1 plus 2 plus 6. That equals 9. Then I bring my decimal straight down. Don't forget to do that step. Then 2 plus 3 plus 0 is 5. and then 6 plus nothing is 6. So my actual answer is 65 and 90 hundredths, or 65 and 9 tenths. So we got really close. Our answer was about 66. That was our estimate. And our actual was 65 and 9 tenths, which is extremely close to 66. Finally, we're going to go ahead and do this last problem. It says, Jorge spends $42.75 on a new jacket and $88.30 on a pair of running shoes. How much money does he spend in all? Show your work. We're going to go ahead again and use the, and stack these two on top of each other. And we're going to start with our $42.75. Now, do you notice how I kind of write these far apart from each other? I find that when I write them far apart from each other, it really helps me to be able to line up my place values. So I have my tens, my ones, my decimal points, my tenths, and my hundredths. Now I'm going to line up this $88.30 right underneath this $42.75. So I have 8 in my tens place. I have another 8 in my ones place. I have a decimal. I have a 3 in my tenths. And then I have a 0 in my hundredths. And now I'm going to add those together to see how much money Jorge spent. And I think he spent a lot of money. He must have expensive taste. All right, let's go ahead and add. 5 plus 3 is 5. 7 plus 3 is 10, which gives us 10 tenths, which we know, what does it do? It regroups. That 10 tenths regroups to one whole. So we're going to put a 0 here and carry that one whole over to our ones. Then we're going to bring our decimal straight down. That is the most important part. Do not forget your decimal, because otherwise this number will mean something entirely different if you don't have that decimal. Then we're going to add all of our ones. 1 plus 2 plus 8 is 11. We have 11 ones. And again, we can't have 11 in the ones place. So we're going to put our 1 down below, and then we're going to regroup and put one group of 10 up above the tens, because 10 plus 1 is 11. Now we're going to add our tens place. We have 8 plus 4 plus 1, which is 13. So we can't have 13 tens. So we're going to put a 3, and then technically we carry the 1 for the 100, but we don't need to do that because we know we can just write that 13 like that, and that means we have 100, 3 tens, 1 1, 0 tenths, and 5 hundredths, or Jorge spent $131.05. With that, you're going to go ahead and go on into your math workbook, and you're going to do pages 197 and 198 on your own. As always, if you have any questions, you can email your teacher. If not, I will see you next time.